As wildfires engulfed Los Angeles, reducing homes to ash and lives to ruins, one young man dared to see beyond the devastation, a hidden pattern within the chaos, a mystery ignited by the relentless flames. In early January 2025, Los Angeles found itself under siege as relentless wildfires tore through the region. The flames, driven by fierce Santa Ana winds, consumed vast swaths of land, leaving devastation in their wake. Over 10,000 structures were reduced to ash, and the fires claimed at least 11 lives, forcing more than 180,000 residents to flee their homes. Amid this chaos, the Trump family had traveled to California for a series of engagements. Barron Trump, now 18 and a freshman at New York University, accompanied his parents on this trip, while his father, President Donald Trump, attended a fundraiser in the Los Angeles area. Barron found himself with time to explore the city. As the wildfires intensified, the city's air grew thick with smoke, casting an eerie orange hue over the skyline. Intrigued by the unfolding disaster, Barron began to follow news reports and social media updates closely. He noted the widespread destruction in areas like Pacific Palisades, where multi-million-dollar homes were reduced to rubble, and the historic Will Rogers Ranch was lost to the flames. However, amidst the devastation, something peculiar caught Barron's attention, an unusual pattern in the locations where the fires had ignited. While most people focused on the sheer scale of the disaster, Barron noticed a peculiar trajectory. This observation sparked his curiosity, compelling him to delve deeper into the available data and reports. Using public information from news outlets and official fire department releases, Barron began mapping the reported ignition sites. The more he plotted, the clearer the pattern became. The fires appeared to have started in a sequence that suggested more than just random occurrences or the result of natural causes. Eager to share his findings, Barron approached his parents. Though preoccupied with their commitments, they encouraged him to pursue his curiosity but advised caution. Undeterred, Barron reached out to local authorities and fire experts, hoping to share his observations and gain further insight. However, his efforts were met with skepticism and resistance. Barron's inquiries were met with skepticism. Officials, overwhelmed with managing the crisis, had little time to entertain theories from an 18-year-old, regardless of his background. Some dismissed his observations as mere coincidences, while others assured him that seasoned professionals were already handling the situation. Despite the dismissals, Barron's conviction grew stronger. He couldn't shake the feeling that a deliberate hand was orchestrating the disaster. Determined to uncover the truth, he decided to investigate further on his own, unaware of the dangers and challenges that lay ahead. What started as curiosity was quickly evolving into an obsession. The scale of destruction caused by the wildfires was unlike anything Los Angeles had witnessed in years. Entire neighborhoods were reduced to smoldering ruins, and thick smoke turned daylight into a dim, apocalyptic haze. Emergency shelters were overflowing with displaced families, many recounting harrowing escapes from the relentless flames. In areas like Malibu and Calabasas, luxury estates that once stood as symbols of wealth and security were now indistinguishable piles of ash and rubble. Streets lay eerily silent, broken only by the hum of fire trucks and helicopters dropping water onto the infernos. Wildlife, too, bore the brunt of the catastrophe. Thousands of acres of habitat were destroyed, and animals fled to suburban backyards in desperation. The fires showed no mercy, sparing neither human nor nature, and leaving the city's residents grappling with a growing sense of hopelessness. Fanned by gusts exceeding 60 miles per hour, the wildfires spread faster than containment efforts could keep up. Firefighters, already drained from battling previous blazes, worked around the clock. Images of exhausted firefighters collapsing from sheer fatigue became a haunting symbol of the human cost behind the heroic efforts to control the flames. Meanwhile, Barron found himself deeply affected by the stories he encountered. The tales of displaced families, the despair of those who had lost everything, and the sheer scale of destruction weighed heavily on him. But rather than dissuade him, these stories only strengthened his resolve to uncover the truth behind the fires. During a visit to an evacuation center in Santa Monica, Barron overheard a tearful mother recounting how she had only minutes to grab her children and escape before their home was consumed by flames. Her voice trembled as she relived the terror of that moment, leaving a deep impression on Barron. Another evacuee, an older man, shared a photo of his prized vintage car collection, now nothing more than a pile of scorched metal. The man's devastated expression spoke volumes about the personal toll of the disaster. But what lingered most in Barron's mind was the story of a firefighter he spoke to. "It's almost like they've got a mind of their own," the firefighter said, shaking his head. "I've been doing this for 20 years and I've never seen anything like it. Some of these fires seem to ignite out of nowhere, in places you'd never expect." These remarks struck a chord with Barron, solidifying his belief that there was more to the wildfires than met the eye. He couldn't help but think back to the strange alignment of ignition points he'd noticed earlier. Determined to uncover the truth, Barron spent hours combing through online forums and social media, piecing together bits of information. What he found both intrigued and unsettled him. Many posts mirrored his observations about unusual fire patterns. Speculations ranged from arson to more sinister theories, including corporate sabotage and attempts at forced land acquisition. One particular thread caught Barron's attention. A user had uploaded drone footage of an area just outside Pasadena. The grainy video showed what appeared to be an initial spark from an object falling from the sky, moments before the fire erupted. Barron's pulse quickened as he replayed the footage. Though the quality was poor, it was enough to deepen his suspicions. He saved the video immediately, knowing it could be a crucial piece of evidence. But as Barron delved deeper into the mystery, the questions he was asking became increasingly dangerous. Each new revelation seemed to pull him further into a maze of uncertainty, where every answer led to even more troubling possibilities. That night, as darkness enveloped Los Angeles, Barron sat in his dimly lit hotel room. His laptop screen glowed faintly, illuminating a desk cluttered with hastily scribbled notes, screenshots from social media posts, and a crude map of the wildfire spread. His eyes were fixed intently on the drone footage, his mind racing with possibilities. Barron replayed the drone footage he had downloaded earlier, frame by frame. The object in question, a small, bright flare, appeared for only a split second before vanishing into the brush. Moments later, the flames erupted. The sequence was eerie, to say the least. While most wildfires are sparked by lightning, faulty power lines, or human carelessness, this footage hinted at something far more unnatural. Determined to piece together the puzzle, Barron cross-referenced the footage with news articles and fire department updates. Marking the ignition points on his map, he was struck by their disturbing precision. The dots formed a path that stretched from rural areas to densely populated neighborhoods, almost as if charted with intent. What began as curiosity had turned into obsession. Barron delved into public records, tracing recent land purchases in the fire-affected areas. A chilling pattern emerged. Properties in high-risk zones had been quietly acquired by a handful of corporations in the months leading up to the fires. Barron meticulously documented the names of these companies, only to find that most were shell entities with scanned information available online. The deeper he dug, the more questions arose. One corporation in particular caught his attention: Solvista Holdings. Solvista's name appeared repeatedly in recent transactions for properties destroyed by the fires. What stood out most was that the purchases were made at inflated prices, an odd move for areas prone to natural disasters. The irregularities gnawed at Barron, heightening his sense that something sinister was unfolding. Feeling the weight of his discoveries, Barron called his older sister, Ivanka, to share his findings. "It just doesn't add up," he explained. "Why would anyone pay so much for land in fire zones unless they knew something we didn't?" Ivanka listened patiently but remained cautious. "Barron, this sounds serious, but be careful. If you're right, this could involve powerful people who don't want to be exposed." Her warning only fueled his resolve. The next day, Barron drove out to one of the affected areas, hoping to see the aftermath firsthand. What he found left him shaken. Amid the charred remains of homes and businesses, there were strange anomalies that defied explanation. In one neighborhood, a line of trees stood untouched while the houses around them were reduced to ashes. The sight was haunting, raising more questions than answers. Barron stared in disbelief, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. A concrete wall bore scorch marks on one side, but the other side was mysteriously clean. The contrast was unsettling. Barron took photos of everything, cataloging each detail meticulously. But as he walked through the ruins, a growing sense of unease crept over him. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. At the edge of the street, a black SUV idled. Its windows were tinted too dark to see inside, and it didn't appear to belong to any emergency responders. Barron's instincts told him it was out of place, but he chose to ignore the unease. Determined not to let fear deter him, he continued his documentation. Responses poured in almost immediately. Some users thanked him for bringing attention to the anomalies, while others shared similar accounts from different parts of California. However, one reply stood out, a cryptic message that read, "You're closer to the truth than you think. Be careful who you trust." The message sent a chill down Barron's spine. Unbeknownst to him, his investigation was beginning to draw the attention of people who were far from friendly. The flicker of excitement he'd felt earlier gave way to an uneasy awareness of how high the stakes might be. Sitting alone in his dimly lit room, Barron reviewed his findings once more. Each piece of evidence pointed to something deliberate, something orchestrated. But by whom? And why? These questions loomed over him, casting shadows he couldn't escape. The next morning, Barron decided to take his investigation offline. The cryptic warning from the forum had unsettled him, and he feared that his digital footprint might be drawing too much attention. He resolved to continue his search for answers, but with greater caution. Barron couldn't shake the feeling that his digital trail might already have been compromised. Armed with a burner phone and a notebook, he set out to interview local residents in some of the hardest-hit areas, hoping to gather first-hand accounts. He began in Agoura Hills, where several homes had been destroyed. Many evacuees were still camped out in temporary shelters, relying on donated supplies and waiting for news about their properties. Outside a community center, Barron approached an older man named Jack. Jack had lived in the area for decades and had experienced his fair share of wildfires. "This one's different," Jack told Barron, his voice hoarse from days of breathing in smoky air. "Fires don't usually burn this way. They're erratic, sure, but this was like a straight shot." When Barron mentioned Sol Vista Holdings, Jack's demeanor shifted. "Yeah, I've heard the name," he said cautiously. "They've been poking around here for months, buying up properties left and right. People didn't think much of it at first, until the fire started." Thanking Jack, Barron moved on to interview more residents. Similar stories began to emerge. Many recalled seeing strange activity in the days leading up to the fires. Low-flying drones, unmarked utility trucks, and even loud booms at odd hours of the night. Each account added weight to Barron's theory. His next stop was the city of Thousand Oaks, where he met a woman named Elena, who had been evacuated from her family's ranch. She invited Barron to see a series of photos she had taken on her phone. One image caught his attention immediately. A burned site with scorched earth in perfect circles, as if something had exploded in multiple places simultaneously. Elena hesitated before handing Barron another photo. It was blurry but unmistakable, a drone hovering over her property. The drone was equipped with what looked like a small canister attached to its underside. The sight sent a jolt through Barron. "I thought I was imagining things," Elena said quietly. "But after the fires, I started wondering if this was connected." Her voice carried both fear and anger, and Barron could see the toll the disaster had taken on her. He assured her he would look into it, grateful for her courage in sharing such damning evidence. "I tried reporting this to the authorities," Elena said, her voice tinged with frustration. "But they said they were too overwhelmed to investigate. I don't think they cared." Her words struck a chord with Barron, leaving him with a pit in his stomach. The pieces were beginning to come together, and an unsettling possibility took shape in his mind. Could drones have been used to start the fires? The idea seemed far-fetched, but not impossible, especially given the precision of the ignition points. Determined to get to the bottom of it, Barron decided to dig deeper into Solvista Holdings. That evening, he visited the downtown Los Angeles Public Library to access corporate filings and news archives. After hours of searching, he uncovered the name of Solvista's CEO, Victor Grayson. Grayson was a relatively low-profile figure, but had connections to several energy and real estate companies. As Barron delved into Grayson's history, a disturbing pattern emerged. Grayson had been sued multiple times for environmental violations, including illegal fracking operations and land contamination. One article highlighted his aggressive push for land redevelopment projects in wildfire-prone areas, often lobbying for relaxed regulations to fast-track construction after fires. The more Barron learned, the clearer the picture became. The fires weren't just a tragedy, they were an opportunity. If someone could clear large swaths of land quickly, they could rebuild for enormous profit. The realization chilled Barron to his core. As he gathered more information, Barron couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Earlier that day, the black SUV had reappeared, parked near the library's entrance when he arrived. Now, as he left with a folder full of documents, he saw it again, slowly trailing him as he walked to his car. His heart raced as he climbed into his vehicle. The SUV's headlights loomed ominously in his rearview mirror. Barron knew he was getting closer to the truth, but he also knew that the closer he got, the more dangerous his mission became. Driving through the darkened streets of Los Angeles, Barron's pulse quickened. The SUV stayed on his tail, its presence an unspoken threat. He had to think fast. Taking a series of sharp turns, he weaved through side streets and alleys, desperate to lose his pursuer. Relieved but shaken, he clutched the folder of documents he had retrieved from the library. The evidence he had gathered was damning, but Barron was at a crossroads. Who could he trust with this information? The authorities had already dismissed him, and sharing it online might only escalate the danger. After careful consideration, he decided to reach out to someone with resources and experience. A name came to mind: Linda Moreno, a respected investigative journalist known for exposing corruption and corporate malfeasance. After a few quick searches, Barron found her contact information and sent her an encrypted email summarizing what he had uncovered. The next day, Linda agreed to meet Barron at a cafe in Pasadena. Over steaming cups of coffee, she listened intently as he laid out the timeline of the fires, the suspicious land purchases, and the potential involvement of Solvista Holdings. "This is big," Linda said, her tone serious. "If what you're saying is true, this could implicate some very powerful people." She promised to help Barron verify his findings and offered to use her connections to dig deeper into Solvista's activities. But she also issued a stark warning. "These kinds of stories can make enemies," Linda said, leaning closer. "Be careful, Barron. You're in over your head." Their conversation was abruptly interrupted by a loud crash outside. Barron turned to see a car speeding away, its tires screeching as it rounded the corner. Linda's face grew pale. "That's no coincidence," she said in a hushed voice. "We need to move." Over the next few days, Linda and Barron worked tirelessly to uncover more evidence. Linda tapped into her network of sources to obtain internal emails from Solvista Holdings. The emails revealed chilling plans to lobby for expedited rebuilding permits in fire-affected areas, confirming Barron's suspicions about the corporation's intentions. One email in particular caught their attention: a message from Victor Grayson to a colleague. In it, Grayson discussed accelerating the timeline and ensuring sites were cleared. The implications were chilling. Someone was intentionally starting the fires to force residents out and make way for redevelopment projects. The sheer audacity of the scheme left Barron and Linda both furious and resolute in their mission to expose the truth. But their efforts had not gone unnoticed. One evening, when Barron returned to his hotel, he found his room ransacked. Despite the threats, they pressed on. Linda began drafting a bombshell exposé, weaving together the damning evidence they had uncovered. The story was poised to reveal the full extent of Solvista's corruption and the deliberate destruction of communities for profit. But as the deadline approached, Barron couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. The walls seemed to be closing in, and he knew that exposing the truth would come at a cost. one he wasn't sure he was ready to pay. On the morning Linda's article was set to publish, Barron woke to an alert on his burner phone. The encrypted email account he had been using to communicate with Linda had been compromised. Someone had accessed the drafts they were working on. Panicked, Barron called Linda, but the line went straight to voicemail. Unease crept over him as he grabbed his things and headed to her apartment. When Barron arrived, he found Linda's door slightly ajar. His stomach dropped as he pushed it open. Inside, her workspace was in disarray. The walls once covered with notes and printouts about Solvista Holdings were stripped bare. Her laptop, camera, and notebooks were gone. On her desk, a single sticky note remained. In bold black letters, it read, "You were warned, you've been warned." Barron's heart raced as he stared at the ominous note. Linda was gone, and so was most of the evidence they had gathered. The only backup remained on Barron's encrypted cloud storage, but he knew it wouldn't stay safe for long. Grabbing the folder of documents he had kept with him at all times, Barron left the apartment immediately. He was desperate for help and decided to contact his father, a step he had been reluctant to take. The situation had escalated far beyond what he could handle alone. "Dad," he said over the phone, his voice trembling, "I need your help. This is bigger than I thought." Donald Trump, known for his vast connections and influence, listened intently as Barron explained the depth of what he had uncovered. There was a pause before his father spoke. "You've got guts, kid," he finally said. "But you're right. This is dangerous. I'll make a few calls, but Barron, keep your head down and don't trust anyone." That same day, Barron received an encrypted message from an unknown sender. It contained an attachment labeled "Proof of Operation Phoenix." His hands shook as he opened the file. Inside was damning evidence: detailed plans for orchestrating the fires, schematics for the drones, and emails from top Solvista executives discussing payouts to complicit officials. The message ended with a chilling line: "Release this and you'll never see daylight again." Barron's stomach churned. He knew he couldn't keep this to himself. Without hesitation, he forwarded the file to Linda's editor at the investigative outlet she had worked for, attaching the story they had drafted before her disappearance. Barron knew the risks, but he also knew the truth had to come out. Within hours, the story broke across major news networks. The exposé laid bare the calculated destruction of entire communities for financial gain. The exposé implicated Solvista Holdings and several high-ranking officials in California. The public reaction was explosive. Protests erupted outside Solvista's headquarters. Enraged citizens demanded justice for the families displaced by the fires. The revelation sent shockwaves through the state and beyond, sparking outrage and calls for accountability at the highest levels. Federal authorities launched an investigation, and Victor Grayson's face became a symbol of greed and corruption. The revelations sparked outrage across the nation, but the fallout wasn't without its costs. Barron's life was turned upside down as he became a target of scrutiny and relentless media attention. His father's advisors urged him to stay out of the spotlight, warning of the dangers, but Barron remained steadfast. "People need to know the truth," he told reporters during one of his few public appearances. His defiance resonated with many, but it also made him a magnet for threats and harassment. Despite the challenges, Barron's actions led to sweeping reforms in how land acquisitions were regulated in wildfire-prone areas. Solvista Holdings' assets were frozen, and several of its executives were indicted on charges of corruption and conspiracy. However, Victor Grayson, the mastermind behind the operation, remained at large. Reports suggested he had fled the country to evade prosecution, leaving behind a legacy of greed and destruction. Even as justice began to take shape, Barron couldn't forget the chilling warning he had received: "Release this and you'll never see daylight again." The shadow of those behind the operation loomed large, a constant reminder of the risks he had taken to expose the truth. In the weeks following the exposé, the world watched as the fallout from the scandal unfolded. News anchors detailed the investigations into Solvista Holdings, the arrests of complicit officials, and the growing movement to reform wildfire prevention and response strategies. For the first time, the public began to view the fires not as uncontrollable natural disasters, but as deliberate, calculated acts of greed. The shift in perspective ignited a national conversation about accountability and corporate ethics. Barron, however, stayed out of the limelight. The initial media frenzy had made him a household name, but it also brought with it a barrage of threats and harassment. Concerned for his safety, his family arranged for him to leave Los Angeles and relocate to a secure location. As he packed his belongings and prepared to leave, Barron reflected on everything that had happened. The cost of exposing the truth had been high, but he knew it was necessary. For the families who had lost everything, and for the future of countless others, the fight had been worth it. While Barron appreciated his family's efforts to protect him, he struggled with the weight of everything he had uncovered. He spent his days reflecting on the lives destroyed by the fires, families who had lost their homes, firefighters who had risked their lives, and communities that would never be the same. Yet amidst the tragedy, Barron found a glimmer of hope. He had witnessed firsthand how ordinary people could make a difference, even when the odds were stacked against them. One afternoon, he received an email from a woman he had met at one of the shelters. Her family's home had been destroyed in the fires, but thanks to the public outcry and donations sparked by the expose, they were able to rebuild. "Thank you for what you did," the email read. "You gave us hope when we thought we had none." The message reaffirmed Barron's belief in the power of truth. While his journey had been fraught with danger, it had also shown him the importance of standing up for what was right, no matter the cost. He realized that his actions had sparked more than just outrage. They had inspired real change. In the months that followed, new legislation was passed to regulate land purchases in high-risk areas, ensuring stricter oversight and accountability. A task force was also established to investigate the use of drones and other technologies in criminal activities. These measures couldn't undo the damage that had been done, but they represented a step toward preventing future tragedies. Barron's experience left a lasting impression on him, shaping his sense of purpose. Determined to channel his energy into activism, Barron used his platform to advocate for environmental justice and corporate accountability. Though the events surrounding the wildfires had forever changed his life, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. In an interview months later, Barron reflected on his journey. "The truth matters," he said, "and it's up to all of us to make sure it comes to light." His story became a powerful reminder of the impact courage and conviction can have in a world where greed and corruption often go unchecked. The story of the Los Angeles wildfires is a testament to the power of individuals willing to ask the hard questions and uncover the truth. If Barron's story inspired you, consider what actions you can take to make a difference in your own community. Together, we can shine a light on the issues that deserve attention. And remember, your support helps bring stories that matter to the forefront. Stand for the truth, because every voice has the power to inspire change.